On most of our systems today, it is very common to build in a lot of redundancy, not only in the disks with RAID or the backups, but the systems themselves and their paths they take out of our network and where they're connected to the power. The most common things that would fail in a system is anything with moving parts. Which makes sense. I mean, they move, they're easy to break, whereas if the hardware is static, it has less chance of breakage. So we would normally have redundant power supplies. In the power supplies, there are little fans. They can and do often break. The same thing with the fans that are distributed across the motherboard and throughout the chassis of the server. They're on 24/7, the entire year. They will break at some point. Obviously, we have designed the system so they have multiple power supplies, and each power supply on its own is enough to provide power to the entire system. The same with the fans. We assume some of them will break at some point, so we have enough to provide the airflow we need to keep the temperature of the system down. Even if one breaks, or two. We did the same with the disks. Since on many systems they're still spinning disks, they will break at some point. I mean, any disk will break at some point, but if it has moving parts, it will probably take less time. And we would most often also have redundant NICs on network cards. That would go to redundant switches. That would go to redundant service providers. The power we talked about already. We have two power supplies in each server that goes to different UPSs, that's connected to different batteries, that's connected to different generators, that's connected to different power outlets. Redundant, redundant, redundant. It's also common on physical servers to have redundant disk controllers. We buy or build the system that matches the redundancy needs we have for that application. And the image over here on the right is a physical server. If it was a VM server, it would even be more redundant, because now we're not just talking about one server that would be down if something happens. We're talking about 50 or 100 or 500. And the reason we build all this redundancy into our networks and into our servers is we want to avoid a single point of failure. If one of our HVACs goes down, if a UPS goes down, we should still be fully operational. The same with switches, servers, server components. We ensure that when we design our systems and our data centers, there are no single points of failure. And then the infrastructure that we build our systems in, the data center, the power, the cooling, all that, we design it for future use, not for current use. The fact that I have 1,000 servers today doesn't mean in any way that I will only have 1,000 servers in 5 years. We design it for long-term usage. We are proactive, not reactive. Most of my bad stories about data centers is people who didn't think ahead. And then we just have to do what we have to do to make it work. And bad things happen. We would also in most data centers have spares on hand. If something fails, we can replace it right away. We would have extra hard disks, power supplies, fans, memory, networking cards. And many of the newer systems, a lot of the hardware that breaks is hot swappable, meaning we do not have to power the system down to replace anything. I don't think I have worked on a system where we could replace the memory or the networking card while the system was still up, but hard disks, power supplies, fans are definitely all hot swappable, and while I would still do it off hours and in a service window, it is possible not to bring the system down. If the application is deemed that important, we would most often also have redundant servers. And there are a ton of benefits with this. Not only do we have the redundancy, we might also be able to use load balancing. A normal setup would be between 2 and 4 servers all using a virtual IP, meaning all traffic is sent to that one IP, and then from the virtual IP, it's routed to the actual system. And while it can be used for load balancing, it doesn't always have to be. If we have an active cluster, then yes, this is load balancing. This could be 2 servers, and traffic is sent to both. If it's an active-passive, meaning there's one server that's primary all the time. All traffic is sent to that server unless something happens. Since the servers are normally clustered, there might just be a keep alive or a heartbeat sent every 1 second, 3 seconds. The passive server would every second send a message to the primary server saying, "Are you alive? Are you alive? Are you alive?" If the primary server keeps answering back, then yes, it is. If, however, it crashes after normally 3 keep alives that have not been answered, the passive server will take over. It will become the active server. In well-designed environments, this happens automatically. In poorly designed environments, this is a manual process. Someone will have to go in and point the IP to the new server. And still widely used today is keeping all the servers in the same data center. But by now, you know that is a bad idea. You would normally, even if you have a server cluster in a single data center, you would have a geographically dispersed data center somewhere else. So in the case that a catastrophe hits, you may have 1 or 2 servers at the main site and another 1 or 2 at the secondary site. If designed well, even if the entire data center explodes at the primary site, we should only experience a few seconds of downtime or non-connectivity until traffic is switched to the secondary site. This is obviously an extreme example, but you get the point, right? It could just be a power outage, or that server at the main site will have 1 in the main site, will have 1 in the secondary site, the main site server dies. 3 seconds later, the secondary site server should take over all by itself. On top of our regular backups, we can also use other complementary backup strategies that can give us that near real-time resilience and allow us to recover much faster. These are probably the 3 main things you're going to see on the certification. So I would know them, I would understand what each of them does and how it does it. A database shattering kind of makes sense, right? It's a real-time exact copy of a database saved to a file at another location. Another location in this case does not mean necessarily a geographically remote location. It's just not saved to the same hard disk that the primary database is saved on. Could just be another disk in the same server or in the same rack. And it is many times smart to do it on a different media. Obviously, if we can, if possible, we would want it somewhere geographically distant. So database shattering, exact real-time copy. E-vaulting or electronic vaulting is a remote backup service where we send backups offsite either at a certain interval, that could be the backup I talked about earlier. Every hour, we push a backup out, either regardless of what changed, or we can pick specific files, or if something changed. In this case, I always think I have seen it as being an offsite facility sent to. And then finally, remote journaling. Remote kind of tells you it's somewhere else, but we only send the log files. We do not send the files themselves. If we later need to rebuild any transactions, we can do that from the log files, even if we lose the original files.